Go.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Lund. I'm a 39-year-old single mother of four, and I am a blind individual. I'm making this video in hopes that it will help other persons who may have the symptoms that I had prior to me losing my vision. It started in December of 2007. I didn't see my menstrual cycle for that entire month. This was strange to me because for my entire life, it had always come on time, never missed a day, a month, unless I was pregnant. In January of 2008, I started getting these really bad headaches. When I say bad, it was like someone going into your brain and ripping it apart with their bare hands. I would take over-the-counter Motrin. It didn't help at all. I had some prescription Motrin, 600 milligrams, I had a tooth extracted the year before and didn't need them, so I had them at home and used them for my headaches. Well, these prescription medication that usually last 4 to 6 hours only lasted 2 hours. And immediately after they wore off, the headaches would be back. I started going to the doctor, about March of 2008. I would go to the emergency room, complain of the headaches. They gave me pain medication and would send me back home. This continued until about August of 2008. The pain had gotten so bad that I just couldn't take it anymore. I went in there one day and I said, "You guys have to do something. These headaches are horrible." They never did a CAT scan or MRI. I don't know if it's because I did not have insurance, but whatever the reason was, they never did any MRI or CAT scans. So finally, I went back home and I was standing on my porch looking outside. And those yellow school buses that takes children around when they have children who have disabilities? In St. Croix, we call them the short buses. Well, I was on my porch. I was living in Croixville Apartments on St. Croix. And I saw the bus coming in the parking lot, to drop off some kids. And I kept seeing half of a bus. So I'm saying, I know that these buses are short, but damn, they're not that short. I just saw half a bus. I said, okay. I closed my eyes, I opened it up again, and I was still seeing a half of a bus. At that point, I realized something was wrong. So I immediately went back inside and made an appointment at Sterling Optical to have my eyes checked. So I said, well, maybe something is wrong with my eyes. I got an appointment and went in to see, the optometrist at Sterling Optical the following day. While doing the exam, she looked into my eyes, and then she looked at me, and she did it again, and she looked at me with this puzzling look. I was like, why does she have that weird look on her face? She said, "Miss Lang, do you have diabetes? Are you diabetic?" I said, "No, not that I know of." She said, "Well, are you sure you're not diabetic? You don't take insulin?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, when I look in your eyes, I see a lot of broken blood vessels. I see blood." So I said, "Okay, what does that mean?" She said, "Well, I'm going to have to give you a referral to see a specialist." So at that point, I wasn't really alarmed. I just figured, well, maybe I just need a stronger lens. Maybe one that they don't have in Sterling Optical. So she gave me a referral to see Dr. Moody, and trust me, his name suits him. I went over to see Dr. Moody the same day. He is an ophthalmologist. When I went in to see him, while doing the exam, he covered the right eye and had me look at the screen to read some letters, and I couldn't see anything. So he poked his finger through, I guess, whatever the mechanism was. He said, "You don't see this? You don't see my finger?" And I don't think it was intentional, but he poked me and, his finger poked my eye. I was like, no, I don't see that. I couldn't see absolutely anything out of the left eye. Then he covered the right eye, and I could see. Amazingly, once the left eye was covered, I could see fine out of the right eye. So at that point, he put some drops in my eyes to dilate my eyes, and then did an exam. Upon the examination, he sat down. I've never seen a doctor turn pale. And this was not a white man. I think Dr. Modi is he's Indian descent. He looked at me with this pale look on his face. It was almost like he was about to tell me, you have lost a loved one. He said, Miss Lang, when I look in your eyes, all I see is blood. He said, whatever this is, it is very serious, and you have to seek immediate care overseas. St. Croix does not have any doctors that can handle this condition. So I said to him, well, what is the condition? At that point, tears were coming out of my eyes because just the way that he said it and the look on his face, I was like, okay. He said, you need to go to a hospital that's a teaching hospital so that they, could maybe study you to see what's wrong, or, you have better chances at going to a hospital that has medical students that study. So I left. I was all in tears. I went home, called my employer, told him what happened, and I was on a flight immediately the next day to Houston, Texas, where my sister was. Excuse me, my phone is ringing. 1 second. Hello? Yes. Let me call you right back. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry about that. I had to take that call. There's no one here to press stop for me. So, on my way to Texas, I decided to call a friend of mine named Aisha. She works with Duke Eye Clinic in Durham, North Carolina. And I faxed her the referral that I got from Dr. Modi. And the doctor that she worked for at the time read it and said, well, this sounds like a pseudotumor. And all I heard was tumor. And I said, well, are you trying to tell me I have cancer? She said, no, pseudo means fake. But it gives you all the symptoms of a tumor. And it does, mess with your vision. So at that time, Aisha recommended that I come to Durham instead of going to Texas. But I had already bought my ticket to go to Houston, Texas, and so that's where I went. When I arrived in Texas, my sister took me straight to a Memorial Hermann hospital. She said the best way to get in, being that I didn't have insurance, was to go through the ER. I did so. I saw Dr. Uzuma at the hospital that I went to in Houston. And I told her what the problem was. I showed her my referral. At that point, she said to me, don't they have MRI machines in the Virgin Islands? I said, well, yes, they do, but they don't have any neurosurgeons or neurologists in the Virgin Islands. I felt that was very poor bedside manner, especially coming from a doctor. At that point, she said, well, we'll do a CAT scan. She did a CAT scan, and when the results came back, she said, well, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. We'll just give you something for the pain. I said, well, no. I spoke to the doctor at Duke University Eye Clinic, and she said, this may be a pseudotumor. I said, it can't just be a simple headache because my vision has now, it's to the point where I can't see unless I cover my left eye. So she said, okay, we'll treat it as a tumor, as a pseudotumor, and I'll give you, something for it. She gave me a prescription called azithromycin. At the time, I didn't know what it was. I found out later it's actually the generic for Diamox. And this is used to, it helps to excrete any excess fluid out of your body. I went the next day to Walmart. I think it was Walmart Pharmacy or Walgreens. I'm not sure. Might have been Walgreens. And I filled the prescription, went over home by my sister's house, and I took it. About maybe an hour or two later, I had to run to the bathroom. And when I say run to the bathroom, I really ran to the bathroom. For about 2 days, it really was taking every excess bit of fluid out of my body. But guess what? By the second day, my vision was fine. I wasn't seeing half of school buses. I didn't have to cover my left eye to see out of the right eye. I could see fine. So I said, oh, this is good. Dr. Uzuma is great. And so is the doctor at Durham Eye Center. So at that point, I figured, okay, I'm good. I'm cured. I can go back home, live my life, no headaches. Guess what? The vision was good. The headaches were still there. No matter what I tried, the headaches wouldn't go away. And I said, well, maybe the doctors in St. Croix was right, because at one point, when I went to the ER in St. Croix, they asked me, well, what's going on in my life? Maybe there's some changes. There's something that I'm stressing about. And at that point, I had just gotten a divorce. And they said, the doctor said, well, yep, that's what it is. You're stressing out because you just got a divorce and that's why you're getting these migraines. And I said, well, I can't be stressing out over the divorce because I'm excited that I got a divorce. I said, as a matter of fact, when you look on the front page of the cover page for my divorce decree, it says congratulations in big bold black letters with an exclamation mark at the end. I said, I'm actually very excited that I'm now divorced. So why would I be stressing over something that I'm excited about? They said, well, that's what it has to be. That's what it is. So, after my vision was fine again in Texas, and I was still getting the migraines, I said, well, maybe there's something going on that's more deep in my mind. Maybe I am kind of worried about this divorce, even though I'm excited about it. I know. It is as confusing as it sounds. So anyway, I went back to St. Croix. This was in September of 2008. And about a week after returning home, the headaches got excruciatingly bad. When I tell you, it was horrible. It was really horrible. It was to the point where it was unbearable. It felt like not only did someone was ripping, my brain apart, but they were also pouring acid in there. So I made an appointment to see Dr. Anduz. He is an ophthalmologist in St. Croix. Wonderful guy. Very pleasant. Wonderful bedside manner. Excellent doctor. And he gave me an appointment to see him a week later. I went in to see him, and he dilated my eyes and did I think it's a sonogram of the eyes. Because after he dilated my eyes, I had to look into some type of machine, and I could actually see stuff on a computer screen. It looked like a brain with stuff around it. It may not have been my brain. He said it was my optic nerve. But when he looked at it, there was a lot of swelling. There was a lot of matter around it. He could barely even see the optic nerve. And so he said to me, yes, you do have a pseudotumor. And he explained to me that pseudo means fake. And it gives you all the symptoms of actual tumor. It's actually the spinal fluid from your spinal cord that encases itself around the optic nerve, and it gives you all the symptoms of actual tumor. Now, I had some comfort in knowing that pseudo meant fake, and that meant that I didn't have cancer, and I wouldn't have to do chemo or radiation. But I was still confused as to why I had this fake tumor that was giving me all the symptoms of a tumor. He explained to me that it usually happens with females who are overweight and is between a certain age. I can't remember offhand right now what the age group is, but I was within that age group. At the time, I was 32 years old. I'm now 39. So he put me on Diamox, not the generic, and I started taking them, because the acetazolamide was almost finished, and so he put me on Diamox 250 milligrams, I think it was. He also put me on prednisone, which was supposed to help with the swelling. Prednisone is a steroid that, it can become very addictive, and in a lot of cases, the side effect is you get a huge appetite. You just want to eat. Some people have said they want to eat the refrigerator that the food is in. But the good thing about it for me is the 3 side effects of Diamox is fatigue, sensitivity to light, and loss of appetite. And trust me, I had all 3. And I did not mind having loss of appetite because at that point I was extremely overweight. I weighed 260 pounds and I'm 5'3". So that was way overweight for my height. And taking the Diamox actually helped me to lose a lot of weight. I went from being 260 down to 230 in about, I would say about 4 weeks. I just had absolutely no appetite. So finally, we're still in September at this point. October of the same year, the headaches got extremely bad. And I would go to the emergency room. They would call Dr. Andrews. He would tell them what to give me. Usually a shot of morphine, because at this point, they knew now that I had a pseudotumor. There was no more guessing. We're just going to give her some drugs and we're going to send her home. The morphine would last for about an hour or 2. And then they would discharge me. I'd go back home. Same thing would happen the following day. And, it got to the point where it's almost like I had no peripheral vision. Everything looked blurred. I could see directly in front of me, but if you were standing beside me, I couldn't see you. So I went back to the emergency room again at that time, and I said, well, now I can't see. I have no peripheral vision. They did an eye exam, and they sent me to have an MRI. They did a contrast and a no contrast. When the results came back, they said they didn't see anything. And I'm like, but something else has to be wrong. Dr. Andrews said I have a pseudotumor. Don't you see that? They said no, they didn't see it. So now we're at the 2nd week of October 2008. This is the Monday morning. I got up. I was very nauseated. Had to run to the bathroom to throw up. And the only thing that came out was water. And this was not clear water, but it's like chalky water. Looked like chalk. I was very tired, very weak. Of course, no appetite. And it just felt different. It was worse than it ever was before. I called the ambulance. They picked me up the Monday, took me to the emergency room. They gave me morphine, discharged me after maybe about 3-4 hours. Tuesday came back around, same thing again. Called it, and this is the day after. Called the ambulance again, because at this point I had problems walking. The ambulance came and got me. I was living on the 2nd floor in Croyville Apartments. They took me to the ER, and it was the same thing. On the 3rd day, there was a different doctor there. When I called the ambulance on the 3rd day, they did what I think is called a spinal tap. It's where they stick a needle in your back, in your spinal column, and they try to extract some of the spinal fluid. What the doctor explained to me was that sometimes when you have a pseudotumor, you have an excess buildup of the spinal fluid, and that could cause you to get, more headaches. And he felt by doing this procedure that it would alleviate the headaches, that it would get better. And he said, he warned me that it would probably I had to keep still, laid on my side, on my left side, and scoot myself over to the edge of the bed, and I had to be extremely still because I was going to have a needle in my back. And he expected a gush of fluid to come out. Well, when he put the needle in, I heard him say, that's strange. So I said, well, what's strange? He said, well, there's barely any fluid coming out. And I expected that we would have a whole bunch of fluid. So he kept saying, that's really strange. And I'm laying there in the bed saying, well, yeah, everything is strange to me. And it's even more strange that you got a needle stuck in my back and you're telling me it's strange, So anyway, he finished the procedure. The headaches did not get any better. They gave me some more morphine and some prescription pain medication and sent me home. Before I left the hospital, I said to the doctor, I said, there's something wrong. If these are the only symptoms, if these symptoms are just with a pseudotumor, I think I need to be admitted because it feels like I'm dying. He said, well, you'll be okay, You should go back and see Dr. Andrews, follow up with Dr. Andrews. And I did that. Dr. Andrews looked at my eyes. He did his regular examination. He did a vision test. The nurse that did the vision test said, it seems like you have no peripheral vision because you have to look in this machine, and wherever you see these little dots light up in the machine, you're supposed to press a button to show that you see these lights. Well, I didn't see any lights. So she looked at the results. She said, this is strange. It seems like you have no peripheral vision. But at that point, Dr. Andrews didn't prescribe anything new. I was given glasses and more prednisone, more Diamox, and that was it. The fourth day, I was on my bed. This was a Thursday. And I was laying there, my head was at the foot of the bed. I was laying in my daughter's room, Nadia's room. That's my oldest daughter. And I was, with my head down, and something about that room was a bit soothing to me. And when I looked up, there was my little 4-year-old son, Ishmael, sitting on the chair. My daughter Nadia had a Bratz, little purple Bratz chair I had bought her for her 6th birthday. And Ishmael was sitting on that chair. He had no shirt on, just a short little jeans pants. And he had his hand under his chin. Like when someone is worried, they're sitting like this. He's looking at me with those big, beautiful eyes. And I looked up at him. I said, Ishmael, why are you sitting there? I said, you could go and play. He said, I said, you don't have to sit there, but you could see that he was worried, When I looked out for my daughters, they were watching TV in the living room. They weren't really studying me. But of course, as kids, they didn't know the severity of what was going on. But I guess Ishmael, being the youngest child, he felt it. And that child wouldn't move. He just sat there and he looked at me and I looked at him until I fell asleep. When I got up, I tried to walk to the bathroom. And I had to hold on to the wall. It could barely move. I called the ambulance at that time. Again, this is the fourth day in 1 week. So they came and got me. It was the same routine. This day I couldn't go down the stairs. They had to physically take me down. One person on each side holding me under the armpits to take me down the stairs. When I got to the hospital, I called my mom. And I told her, please contact Patients Advocates because if they send me home today, I'm going to die. And she did. And so one of the representatives from Patients Advocates met me down in the ER and said to me, "We're going to admit you today." I said, "Well, thank you." I was so happy to be admitted. About 7 or 8 o'clock that evening, they took me up to the floor. I think it was medical one. And I was laying there in bed. The nurses came in. They put in an IV. And I called my mom and I told her that they admitted me to the hospital. And I was fine. They had just given me some morphine, so I'd probably be sleeping. Well, I fell asleep for about a half an hour. And I woke up. I was looking at the TV. I could remember clearly. I was looking at CNN News. And the lady on that, the newscaster had on a red shirt. And I'm looking at the screen, and it's like if you ever went to a talent show, when they bring the curtains down when the show is at the end? That's what happened. A black curtain came halfway down over the TV screen, and then it went back up. And I said, this morphine is having quite an effect on me. So then the curtain came down again halfway, and then it went back up. And then the third time it just went all the way down, and I was blind. I could still hear the lady on TV reading the news, but I couldn't see her, and nor could I see the TV. And I just lay there in the bed. Every time I tell folks this story, they laugh, but I'm laying there in the bed, and I'm saying, wow, this is how it is when you're dying. So I'm laying on the bed. I didn't call anyone. I didn't press the buzzer for the nurse. Because, I used to always wonder when I heard stories of people that were suffering maybe from cancer or some terminal illness that caused them a lot of pain. I used to always wonder why people would say they gave up. They're just tired. And, I'd always hear stories of that where patients would get tired, they gave up on life, and they just went, they died. And I understood at that point what it was like, because I was so tired. I was so tired of the pain. I was so tired of taking medications for pain, and had it not worked, I was tired of living that life. I was just living a life of pain. And prior to this, I was a perfectly healthy person. I hardly ever got sick. Everyone else would have the flu. I wouldn't get the flu. I would catch a cold maybe once every 3 years, but otherwise I was perfectly healthy. So there I am laying in the bed, can't see anything. I could hear the news, and I'm saying to myself, okay, this is how it is when you die. So I'm waiting for the sound to go and for my, to basically die, my spirit to drift away. Well, that didn't happen. And I'm like, damn, does it take this long to die? I already can't see. That means for sure I'm dying. So I'm laying there in the bed, and here comes my mom. She walks in the room. Of course, she doesn't know what's going on with my vision. She says, "Get up. I brought you a change of clothes. Let's go in the bathroom to take a shower." I said, "Well, I can't see." She said, "What do you mean you can't see? Get up. I'm going to take you in the bathroom." I said, Mommy, I can't see." She said, at that point she realizes I really can't see. She said, "What do you mean you can't see?" I said, "I can't see." So she runs out the room. Hey, my daughter can't see. Somebody come. My daughter is blind. And let me tell you, it seemed like the whole hospital ran into my room. The nurses ran in, and they were like, "Miss Lang, are you okay?" I said, "Well, I'm fine. I just can't see." And the nurses said, you can't see?" I said, "No, I can't see." And trust me, I'm as calm now as I was then. And they said, "You can't see." One of them, I guess, were putting their hands in front of my face, saying, "Can you see this?" I said, "No, I can't see anything. All I can see is black. It's everything is black." And I guess they were looking at me like, is she okay? Is she suffering some type of side effects from the morphine? And because I was extremely calm. in a way, I was kind of disappointed that I wasn't in the afterlife because I was so tired of the pain. But the funny thing is, as soon as the vision went, the pain went. There was no more headaches. And I knew by then the morphine had worn off, but there was no return of the headaches. So that was really good. So I'm there in the bed, they're sending a doctor, Dr. Gardner. That's his name, Dr. Gardner. He came in, he did his exam. He said they're going to send me to see an ophthalmologist because there was no one on the staff. You know, the hospital did not have an ophthalmologist on their staff. So they put me on a medical bus. It wasn't an ambulance. It was actually like a bus. And they took me over to see Dr. Hombres. He is an ophthalmologist. This was about 7 o'clock at night. They took me into the office. At that point, it seemed like I could see a little bit. The curtain was still down, but it kept going up a little bit, coming back down, going up a little bit, coming back down. So I could see people's feet, but that was it. He dilated my eyes. He looked in them. I guess the same thing that Dr. Andrews did before, where they could see my optic nerve. He said, well, I see a blockage. Well, we're gonna give you some more prednisone. And I'm like, that doesn't work. That's what Dr. Andrews gave me, and it doesn't work. I'm getting worse. So he said, this is what we're gonna give you. That's what they did. They took me back to the hospital, and I remember that night, the nurses came in to check my blood and said that your blood is low. It was, I think it was 8 in the regular, it's supposed to be at a 13, but mine was 8. They said usually at that point a person could go into a coma, you could even die. Well, I'm not too keen, I'm not too good on taking other people's blood. So at first I refused it. The Dr. Gardner came in and he said, we're making arrangements to send you to a hospital in Miami where they could better help you. But of course, no one had a date as to when they were going to send me. But he said, I recommend that you do the blood transfusion here, before you leave, so that way the doctors won't have to, you could go ahead and have whatever procedure you needed done when you get to Miami without having to worry about a transfusion. So I went ahead and I had the transfusion done. The next morning, my mom came to the hospital and she said, get dressed. I said, oh, okay, we're going already? She said, I called your sister Joy in Texas and she paid for you and Rahima, who is my other sister, to fly to Texas. She said, I don't have time for these people and their stupidness here in this hospital. I'm not going to leave you here to die. So she got me dressed. She put me in a wheelchair and she was taking me past the nurse's station to go out. I think I was on the 2nd floor or the 3rd, I'm not sure. The hospital has 3 floors. I know I wasn't on the 1st. I must have been on the 2nd or the 3rd floor. So she's wheeling me past the nurse's station and the nurses are like, Miss Labit, you can't take your daughter out of here. We're going to send her off to the stage. She said, shut up. She told her, shut up. I'm going with my daughter. And she wheeled me through the double doors to the elevator. And we got downstairs, towards the exit. And a security guard came and tried to stop her from taking me out of the hospital. She told him, you better get the F, you know what I'm trying to say, it's a 4-letter word, from in front of me. Because I'm taking my daughter out of this hellhole. And he looked at her, he said, Miss Labit, you cannot take your daughter out of here. She said, well, you watch me. And nobody better don't try to stop me because I'm taking my daughter from here. She put me in the car and we were off to the airport. It was that quick. It was almost like being smuggled out of Cuba. So on the way to the hospital, she said, I'm going to stop by Payless and get you a pair of close-up shoes because Joy said that Texas is cold right now. So I get to the airport. She already had a bag packed for me. We got an American Airlines flight to Houston. And when I arrived in Houston, my sister took me straight to Katy Memorial Hospital. I must say this about Katy Memorial before I tell you of my story in Katy Memorial Hospital. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give them a 10. I give them an A plus an extra 100 points. The staff at Katy Memorial Hospital in Houston, Texas was so pleasant. Everyone from the receptionist in the waiting area to the nurses to the doctors, every single person in that hospital was very pleasant, very warming, very soothing. You know, it made me feel like I was, I don't know, in like one of the best, most expensive hotels. Maybe Millionaire's Wife. It seemed like I was getting excellent care, and they really, really were very nice to me. Well, they took me in. I told them, I filled out the form, whatever. I told them what my issues were. They took me in to have a test done. It's called an MRV. It's sort of like an MRI, but they call it an MRV. The nurse put some headphones on my head. I had to choose what type of music I wanted to listen to. This was optional. And then they roll you into the MRI machine. And I'm a person, I'm very claustrophobic. So, you know, I just didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway. And having a nurse that was so nice to me made it a lot more easier. I was in there a bit longer than I wanted to be. But when it was finished, they escorted me back to the waiting area. I sat there, I would say no more than 20 minutes. And I had two nurses come in front of me. Oh, let me just remember this. While I was in the waiting room for Katy Memorial Hospital, the vision once again went up halfway. And I noticed because my brother-in-law, Joseph Caesar, he was wearing a red t-shirt that had white prints on it, letters, and I saw that. I said to my sister Joe, I said, does Joe have on a red t-shirt? She said yes. I said, does it have white letters on it? She said yes. I said, I saw that. And I also saw the sign that's on the counter in the ER to the patients. It's in white. And I think the letters were in red or black. I saw that. And then the curtain went down again. So the two nurses came and they got me. They took me into a room, put a gown on me and everything, and I laid in the bed. Someone came in and put in the IV, and then a doctor came in and explained to me that I had two massive blood clots in the sinus cavity of my brain, and that I would be admitted to ICU. Now at that point when the doctor said that, I'm like, ICU? That sounds familiar. I turned to my sister and I said, isn't ICU the place that puts you when you're really critical? She said, uh-huh. So I'm like, okay, so why am I going to ICU? You know, she's like, because this is a very serious situation. So I said, okay. And, you know, I worked in a hospital before. I should know all these things. But at that point, everything was happening so fast. It was almost like I was outside of myself and looking in. This was not me. The Kimmery that I know didn't get sick. She was always on top of her game. She could, the Kimmery that I know, myself, I could defeat any illness. You know, you give me the flu, I beat it down. Goodbye, flu. And here I am, with the doctors telling me, and they didn't have just one thrombosis. They said, you have two massive blood clots blood clots in the sinus cavity of your brain. The medical terminology for it is venous sinus thrombosis, which is venous is the veins, sinus, the sinus cavity, and thrombosis is the blood clots. So, they took me up after they did the blood work and everything. The ophthalmologist came in, dilated my eyes. He stuck something onto my eyeballs that would tell him, what the pressure was in my eyes. And then they took me upstairs to ICU. I was put in a room by myself, very nice room. At that point, I could still see the clock on the wall, the shadow of the clock, and the numbers. I remember that. I could see the outline of the TV screen. I could basically see the outline of the room. I didn't know if it was because the room was very bright. The more light it was, maybe I could see a little bit. I didn't see color, I just saw black and white. And the nurse came in, introduced herself. She's very nice. She explained to me, what they would be doing, and that I'm going to be there until right now. They were trying to find a hospital that they could transport me to because Katy Memorial Hospital did not do the type of surgery that I required. And the options was Memorial Hermann in downtown Houston or some other hospital in another part of Texas that was about 2 hours away. And my sister and I both had our fingers crossed that it would take me to the closest one, which was the Memorial Hermann in downtown Houston. I was in Katy Memorial ICU for about a week. I was on an IV drip with heparin. Every day my blood was being tested to make sure, I guess that I wasn't getting too much heparin, because heparin is a blood thinner. They explained to me that once the heparin kicked in, that if I had hemorrhoids or any kind of cuts, that most likely they would bleed. So the nurses were very good with coming in and, checking me. At that point, I was so tired of being poked. They had to draw blood every day, and the nurses would often have a hard time getting blood. They would find a vein, but they couldn't get any blood. So they tried what is called, I think it's the arterial access, where they stick a needle down into this wrist area of your hand, and it is very painful. They tried that, it didn't work. So finally, they took me to have, it's something that they stick up your arm. I know I'm terrible, I should know all these things, but they stick like a tube up your arm here, and it's supposed to go up to your chest, close to your heart, and they leave the line in your hand so that instead of sticking you every minute, they just access this port and they could draw blood like that. And they did that. It was not a painful procedure. They numbed the area. The two technicians that did the procedure were very pleasant. Again, this was at Katy Memorial Hospital. After about a week, the nurses came in and let me know that Memorial Hermann in downtown Houston accepted me and I would be transported that evening. I was transported to Memorial Hermann that evening. I think it was about 7 o'clock in the evening. When I got there, I was sent to the stroke unit. And, when they told me where they were going to take me, I said, well, why am I going to the stroke unit? I don't have a stroke, Why am I going to the stroke unit? And the nurse explained to me that because of the thrombosis, it's basically, a stroke. You do have a stroke. You don't have, I guess, a paralysis. So they admitted me to the stroke unit, Memorial Hermann in downtown Houston. I remember the nurse that they assigned to me was a male nurse. He was from Africa. Very nice guy. But of course, I felt very uncomfortable having a male nurse. I was so accustomed to female nurses, even though there was a a male nurse at Katy Memorial. Once the shift changed, the second shift nurse was a male nurse. He didn't have to change me. I could go use the bathroom and everything. But in the stroke unit at Memorial Hermann downtown Houston, you're not getting out of bed. You stay in bed. So they put me on the bed. I had to take off all my clothing, put on the gown, and the male nurse put, that padding under me. He said, well, this is what you use, if you need to use it, you do it on this pad. I'm like, I'm going to the bathroom. He said, no, you're not allowed to get up. I said, well, you're going to have to give me a bedpan because I'm not doing anything on this thing here. So I guess he was looking at me. They had me hooked up to a bunch of machines. Let me tell you, the stroke unit is not where you ever want to be in any hospital. And I'm just saying this to say, the stroke unit is not for people who are awake. It is for people who are asleep, whether it is because they're in a coma or it's medically induced, but it's not for folks who are awake like I was. I had leads on my chest, I had needles in my arms, and all you hear is beep, beep, boop, 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 beep, beep, boop, boop, boop. I'm like, this damn place is so noisy. Like, really? And I'm listening to see if any other people are talking around me, because I don't think we were separated by rooms. We were just separated by curtains. And all you heard in there is beep, beep, boop, boop, beep, beep, boop, boop. Bop, 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 bop. I didn't like that type of music. So, So the nurse came in, very pleasant. I'm trying to remember his name now as we talk. He was very nice. He was from South Africa, I think. I loved his accent. And he explained to me what was going on. When I had to use the bathroom, which is only number 1, I refused to do number 2. He'd put the bedpan under me and I would do my business. And then he'd clean me up and everything. He's a very, very nice guy. I remember I was scheduled to do my first surgery. Was it that day? Let me remember now. Let me see. When I got there first, yes, I was scheduled to do the surgery the following day. And I remember they said I couldn't eat anything. I think it was 8 hours before the surgery or 24 hours, I'm not sure. But I couldn't eat before the surgery. And I was, even though I was on a medication, for some reason I was hungry. So the nurse finally came in about 12 o'clock midnight and he said, your surgery has been postponed. And I asked why. He said, someone was hurt, I think it's a police officer, and they had to do emergency surgery on him or her. I'm not sure if it was a male or a female. I'm like, okay. He said, you can eat now. And I was like, I can eat? He said, yes. He said, but the cafeteria is closed, so I'm going to see what I could gather up for you. And bless his heart, he came with a tray. He had a half a chicken sandwich. He had a slice of pound cake. He had some, I think it was Jell-O. But he gathered everything he could gather for me. He put it in a tray and he brought it for me. And he said, eat. You must eat with his accent. He had a beautiful accent. He said, you have to eat. You must eat, Miss Lang. So I ate the half a sandwich. I ate the Jell-O. And I felt the pound cake there and I said, I gotta eat this pound cake because I love pound cake. And I kept touching it and I said, I gotta eat it. But I was so full at that point, I couldn't eat anything else. I think his name was Richard. It was something with an R. He came back in and he said, but you did not eat your pound cake. I said, I know I tried, but I'm so hungry, I'm so full. He said, well, I'm gonna save it for you. The following day, they rescheduled me, and I think it was the following night that I went in to do the surgery. When they wheeled me to the room where you get the anesthesia, I remember the anesthesiologist was a very pleasant guy. My sister was there with me, Rahima and Joy, both sisters. And he was making jokes. He said, Miss Lang, I'm going to give you some mother's milk. I said, mother's milk? He said, yes, this is what we call it because it's white, looks like milk. That's the last thing I heard him say. I was out. When I woke up again, I was somewhere. I didn't know where I was, but I know there were two guys having a conversation right next to wherever I was. One of the guys said, "This is a whole lot of women." When I heard him say that, I got really scared. I'm like, oh my God, I heard so many stories of people being molested or raped in hospitals. That one guy that was saying this is a whole lot of women, he sounded like he was African American. The other guy that was talking sounded like he was of Indian descent. And they were just having a conversation about, how much of a whole lot of women this was. And I guess I was just coming out of the anesthesia. I could feel that there was a spongy thing in my mouth and some type of hose. I couldn't move because my arms were strapped with Velcro on either side of the bed. And I started coughing. My body was, I guess, convulsing. Every time I coughed, my body would pick up a little bit off the bed. And it seemed like forever. There's a lot of saliva building up in my mouth, and they just continued talking, like they didn't see me there coughing. And then one of the guys just took a hose and stuck it in my mouth and sucked it out. He did it kind of rough too because it knocked against my teeth. And that went on for a few minutes. Then they started wheeling me back towards, I guess, the stroke unit. I was so happy when I got there because I felt like, okay, I'm safe now. If they were planning to do me something, they're not going to do it now. So maybe about an hour or so afterwards, the nurse came in and she explained to me that she was going to take the tube out of my throat and that it may be a bit uncomfortable, but they're going to try to be as quick as possible. And let me tell you, that is not anything you ever want to experience. Have them take those hoses out before you wake up. Because having them do so when you're already awake is not a good thing. When she took the hose out, I was hoarse. I couldn't speak well. But I kept saying, I need to call my sister. And, I couldn't put my hand up to touch my throat. I said, I need to call my sister. She said, well, give it some time and then we'll let you make a call. I said, no, I need to call my sister now. So she dialed the number, put the phone next to my ear. And the best I could, I tried to tell my sister to come to the hospital. She couldn't understand me at first, but when she came, I told her what happened with the two male nurses or orderlies. I didn't know if they were orderlies, if they were nurses. I just knew they were men, and they were talking about my naked body. And she became very upset. She went and filed a complaint. They did an investigation. As of today's date, I haven't heard back from Memorial Hermann Hospital about that incident. But anyway, after the surgery, the first surgeries I had was a face sheet fenestration. That is where they go into your nostrils, they cut the muscles on either side of the inside of your nostrils, and they go up to your optic nerve. They cut some slits in the optic nerve and behind the eyes, because at that time my eyes were bulging out from all the pressure that was in my brain. So they did a face sheet fenestration and they did an angiogram. The angiogram was to remove the blood clots. When the doctors came in to examine me after the surgeries, that is when they explained to me that I not only had one massive blood clot, but that I had two. And they were able to remove one, but the second one had a vessel that grew around it. And so it was better to leave that one alone because it could have caused, bigger problems or more damage had they tried to remove it, since it had already grown a vessel around it. So I'm like, really? I had two massive blood clots and one grew a vessel around it? They said, yeah. So they were trying to kind of figure out how long those clots were there, because when they did the angiogram, they said these clots were not red and fresh, like, fresh clots. They were black. And it seems like they were there a very long time. So they couldn't understand. Number one, they said they had patients that had the thrombosis before. It was usually one thrombosis. But they never had a patient with two thrombosis and a pseudotumor. They would either have one with a pseudotumor or one with a thrombosis. And they definitely did not have any that survived. So it was like they kept saying, you're a medical mystery? And I'm like, really, I am? I know I've been pretty smart throughout my life, but wow, I'm a medical mystery? This was new to me. So I'm laying there in the bed, and the neurosurgeon came. My doctors were Dr. Kim and Dr. McDonald. They were the neurosurgeons that did my surgeries at Memorial Hermann in downtown Houston. I think they were also the same doctors I found out later on that did the surgery on the congresswoman that was shot in her head. Because I remember hearing their names on TV when I got back to St. Croix, I think it was a couple of years later. I was like, those are my doctors. But anyway, they were very nice doctors. They came in, and I guess they were putting their hands in front of me to see if I could see anything. And Dr. McDonald said, well, we put some, I think it's gel or something in the eyes, so we can't see in and therefore you can't see out. They were doing these surgeries in hopes of me getting my vision back. But after, several examinations and, a few days went by, there was nothing. They kept saying, well, we have to wait for your eyes to heal and the optic nerve, and, we'll see what happens. At that point, I had already came to the conclusion that the vision wasn't going to come back. I had already accepted it, and nothing anyone was going to say would change that. So, I was in a stroke unit. I think I stayed there about 3 or 4 weeks. And after I healed and everything, and they were looking to take me to another part of the hospital where there's TVs and not monitors going boop, 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 boop all the time. I remember the night before they moved me, I heard the doctors saying, code blue, code blue. I'm in the stroke unit now. Remember, I'm telling you, no one else in the stroke unit is talking besides me, the doctors, and the nurses. All the other patients are out. They are out. They're either sleeping or they're just not functional. They're like vegetables in the bed. Even though I couldn't see them, there was no talking in there. It was almost like I was in an area with people who were in comas, and I'm the only person awake. So I heard the nurse say, code blue, code blue. And I'm listening to all of this. I'm fully awake. And they did chest compressions, I guess, and they shocked whoever this patient was. And they called the time of death, and I'm there. I'm so traumatized. I was literally shaking. I had never been so scared in my life. To actually know that someone died right next to me. My sister came to visit me that evening, my sister Joy. And I told her, I said, you gotta get me out of here. 2 people died. Because prior to the one lady coding, I was told that another lady had died that same day. Another patient had died. I don't know if it was a male or a female. I just knew that the one that coded blue that day was a female. And she was 18 years old. And I was shaking. I said, you gotta get me out of here. I'm gonna die in here. This is for people who are dying or they're gonna die. I can't stay here. And I begged her, and she brought someone into me, and I begged them. I said, I don't care if you put me in the hallway. I don't care if you put me in the lobby. I can't stay here another day. I was just petrified. So I was so happy that the next morning they came and they put me on another floor. You know, it's very nice. The nurses were very welcoming. They introduced themselves. I had a TV. I had my own bathroom. I wasn't strapped to the bed. Now, mind you, I couldn't get out of bed. I was not allowed out of bed. But I wasn't strapped to a bed, and I wasn't here. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah. So when they put me in the room, I was very, very happy. It was like taking me from prison to... Hold on 1 second. Hello? I know, Kara, give me a few minutes. I'll call you right back. Okay. Yeah, sorry about it. Gotta answer the phone while I'm on the phone while I'm doing this video. But when they took me to the other floor, I guess it was medical 1, 2, or 3, one of those floors. The nurse came in and she examined me, and I had some sort of wire or chain still hooked up to my inner thigh. I guess that's where they did the angiogram. And she said, well, we don't do these. They can't keep you here. We don't do these. We're going to have to send you back. I was like, oh, no, I'm not going back there. Please, you can't send me back there. So she contacted whomever, excuse me, and they came and they removed whatever it was that was in my inner thigh. And everything was fine. I didn't have to go back to the stroke unit. So I was very happy about that. I remember the nurse that came in, to give me a bath and everything. She was so nice. She said, I think she was African American. Very nice lady. She said, hey honey, how you doing? I'm here to give you a bath. And, so I looked to sit up and get out of bed. She said, oh, no. You got to stay in bed. You can't get out. So I said, well, how are you going to give me a bath? She said, well, I'm going to do it right here in the bed. And so she did. They gave me a bath, changed the bed. I had to roll over on one side. She pulled the sheet off. Then roll over on the other side. She fixed the bed right when, I was there in the bed. And she said, I'm going to powder you from head to toe. And she sure did. She powdered me down and made sure I was fresh and clean. And she would often come in when it was her shift and sit in there and keep my company. She's very nice. I wish I remembered her name. And I remember they brought a bedpan on wheels for me to use. Because I kept telling them, I am not using a bedpan in the bed anymore. I can go to the bathroom. But because I was in ICU for so long, they said I would need rehabilitation before I could walk again. Now, mind you, these nurses and doctors didn't know that all the time I was in the bed, I would scoot all the way down to the bottom, and I'd always push my feet up against the footboard. A lot of times the nurse would come in and say, well, sweetie, what are you doing all the way down there? I'd be like, oh, I just scooted down. But I was exercising my legs that whole time. It wasn't intentional. I don't know if my mind just said to do it, but I was doing it. And so they brought a bedpan for me to use on wheels, and I was like, I'm not using that. So what I would do is I would sneak when there was no one in my room, when I thought no one was looking. I would sneak to the bathroom, and the nurse caught me. She was like, Miss Lang, what are you doing out of bed? I said, I'm going to the bathroom. You can't get out of bed. I said, well, I'm already in here. And I found I'm completely blind at this time, but I found my way to the bathroom. I knew that on my right side was the door out, and I knew that that bathroom was on the left, because when the nurse came in to give me a bath, I heard her running water over on that side. So I knew I could find it. And so I did. I started using the bathroom. The second day after I was on that floor, they sent, is that vocational rehabilitation? Someone to give me, help me with my mobility. The lady that came in had a beautiful accent again. I asked her where she was from. She said from South Africa. But it sounded like she had an English accent, like from England. Very pleasant lady. She said, she told me she was there to help me with my mobility, and she gave me a walker that was on wheels. She explained to me that she's going to help me sit up in the bed and help me to stand up, and I would hold on to this walker and just take one step at a time so that I could slowly get back into the walking process. Well, let me tell you, once I got on my feet, I held that walk and I started bolting. She said, wait a minute, where you going? I was walking like I was just, like someone had said, there's $1 million over there, go get it. I was, she said, she had to run after me to stop me. She's like, oh no, where you going? I said, well, you said to walk. She said, but how is it that you could walk like this and you were in bed for 6 weeks? I said, oh, I've been going to the bathroom all the time. I've been exercising my legs in the bed. And so she still had me slow down. I still had to take one step at a time, take it slowly. We went down the hall. We came back, and all the while I'm saying, I just want to walk so that I can walk right on up out of here. Because if I could see, I'll be gone. I don't care how pleasant the nurses were. I wanted to go home. I wanted to go to my children. I miss them so much. Well, I was kind of disappointed because while I was there, the doctors came back in, Dr. McDonald and Dr. Kim, and let me know that I had to have a BP shunt placed in my hip. I said, well, what's that? They said, well, we're going to put this in so if you have any pressure buildup or any fluid in your brain, it'll drain from your head down to your stomach. And it's in there. It's right here on the right hand side. You can feel the reservoir. There's a part of it that collects any excess fluid, but it goes from here in my brain down behind my ears, over the collarbone, and it drains into my stomach. There's a little incision next to my navel, and it drains in there. So I asked them to please, when you do this surgery, please take the tubing out before I'm up, because I had such a bad experience with the last surgery. And I asked them to please do not have a male nurse or orderly be the person to escort me back to my room after the surgery because of the experience I had before. So they assured me that they would not have a male nurse, that it would be a female, and I would be fine. He said, the doctor said that they would have to shave one little piece of my hair to put in the shunt, and that would be it. They said the hair would be able to cover the part that they did the surgery, and you barely be able to notice that I had surgery. Well, first of all, when they came to get me, to take me to get the surgery, guess who came and got me? A male orderly. I think his name was Jose or Wang. He was Hispanic. Nice guy. He was there talking on his phone and stuff, and talking to everyone. And was it a phone? Yeah, I think he was on his phone because he was talking to someone else that was not there with us. But he was a very nice guy. Of course, I was nervous because I'm saying, I told these people I did not want to have a male nurse or orderly take me because of the experience I had, and they still didn't listen. So he took me to the area, where I was going to be prepped for surgery. And they came out, they said they had to do another IV in the second hand for the anesthesia. And I'm like, no, you're not poking me again. I had too many pokes. Well, that's the last thing I heard. I guess the anesthesiologist must have said, I don't have time for this foolishness, because they knocked me out. And when I woke up, I had 2 lines in my hand. But anyway, when I woke up from that surgery, when I came to, I was back on the floor, the medical floor, not on the stroke unit, because I had begged them not to take me back there. So when I came to, everyone was like, yay, she's up. Oh, you don't know how I felt. I felt so good to know I was back there and not in the stroke unit, and it was good. So after the second surgery, the rehabilitation specialist came back, and she worked with me on how to identify where I was and to memorize certain objects so that I could find my way back. And I was released from the hospital about, I think, 2 weeks after that. I was discharged. And my sister took me home, my sister Joy took me home. Before we got there, we stopped by the DMV to get a Texas ID. And I remember when I was in there, I rest my hand on the counter and my head on it, just like this. And I didn't have my no shades on. I didn't know at the time that I looked like an experiment gone wrong. I found it out afterwards. But I found it strange that the officer that was there asked me if I was okay. I said, yes, I'm fine. And he said, okay. And so we left. We went home to my sister's house. And I remember before, when I was at her house in September, before I lost my vision, both my sister and her husband would always cook, and the food used to smell so delicious. And I remember when I got home now, my vision was gone. My sister would come in the room and she'd say, well, okay, you could come, finish eating. And she would make me find my way, to the kitchen. She's very good at that. Wonderful drill sergeant. It's because of her that I became so independent with my disability. She would put my hand against the wall and tell me, follow the wall to the kitchen. And I would do the same thing to find my way to the bathroom. Her house was a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house in Fulshire, Texas. Very nice. So I'd find my way to the kitchen, and I kept saying, well, did my sister forget how to cook? Because I don't smell her food anymore. And she's an excellent cook. She could out-cook any chef out there. And I didn't realize that not only did I lose my vision, I lost my smell. But of course, I didn't come to that reality until I returned home to St. Croix. But let me tell you what happened prior to returning to St. Croix. Remember, my sister took me to church, and we were sitting in the car, in a small little wooden church. I went there several times when I was there in September. Very small wooden church. The pastor looked just like that guy that played in Jeepers Creepers, the black older man. Very handsome guy. He was a farmer. They had a big old rubber tree next to the church. I remember saying, this looks just like St. Croix. And so we were sitting. Hold on one second. Ishmael, you better get off of that game. Close the bedroom door, please. Thank you. I'm sorry about that, but I'm doing this video just as how I live my life every day. That's my son Ishmael, home from school today because he had a sore throat and a fever. And I told him he had to stay in bed all day since he's sick. And I could swear I heard him in the room playing a game, but he said he doesn't have the game, so maybe it's just a TV. But anyway, let's back to my story. So I'm sitting in the car. This is about 4 days after I got discharged from the hospital, and I just broke down. I started crying. I said, I want to go home to my children. I can't take it anymore. I just broke down. And I didn't break down because I was blind. I broke down because I missed my children. I don't know if other moms are like this or is this just me, but I cannot be away from my children, even up to today's date. More than a day. I could, if I'm away from them, it has to be that we're talking on the phone all the time. Like I have an 18-year-old in Job Corps now, and we talk every day. We talk more now than when she was here. But anyway, I broke down crying. I said, I want to go home. And my sister's trying to soothe me. She started crying too. I cried and she cried. We both have the same birthday, by the way, December 30th. And everyone started crying. It took me in a church and everybody started to cry. I said, I gotta go home. I can't take this anymore. So anyway, they got my ticket, the ticket to go home, and I flew home 2 days later. I remember one of the stewardess on the flight, she made sure she took very good care of me. I flew on American Airlines. When I got back to St. Croix, one of the ladies from American Airlines at St. Croix Airport came and got me off the plane. She said, oh, Miss Lang, that's you. I'm such and such and such, and I'm here to escort you to your mom. And she was very nice. She took me off the plane, and, I walked with her to the luggage area. She put me to sit down until my mom reached. Well, I could have sworn I heard my daughter's voice, Natira. I'm sitting there in the luggage area, and I swear I heard my daughter talking. So I'm like, Natira? And she said, Mommy? And she ran over to me, but she didn't hug me. So I'm like, Natira, come here and give me a hug. I found out later on that I had lost so much weight, and the prednisone had, I had a lot of bumps on my face from the prednisone. My eyes were black and blue all around it from the surgeries. And I had that moon-shaped face that you get from taking prednisone. So, when she saw me, she didn't recognize me. But let me stop for a moment. I forgot to mention something about heparin. I was on heparin for 1 week when I was in Katy Memorial Hospital. And when they transported me to Memorial Hermann in downtown Houston, they found that the heparin was not working. They found antibodies to heparin in my blood. Now, mind you, I never took heparin before in my life, but they found antibodies to heparin in my blood. So that whole week that I was in Katy Memorial Hospital, the heparin was not doing its job. And that was actually part of the reason why I suffered so much more damage to my optic nerve. It is because the heparin was not working. So they put me on Coumadin. Okay, now back to the present. So my daughter and my mom picked me up from the airport, took me home to my apartment, and everyone greeted me and, oh, Mommy, I missed you, and it was just me and my 4 children. You see, my oldest daughter, Nadia, was, I think then she was 11 or 12 years old, because she was in the 7th grade. My second daughter, Natira, was 10. Seisha was 8. And little bitty Ishmael was 4. And it was just us. My mom dropped me off. My sister came over and, you know, helped us organize stuff in the house. And then they left. Well, that night, my son Ishmael had a high fever and a headache. And I remember, you know, being blind, of course, was new to me. And here I am with no one in the house. It's just me and my children. And my 4-year-old is screaming and crying and saying, Mommy, my head, my head. And oh, God, he's crying and I'm crying because I don't know what to do. Nobody could find the ibuprofen. So I called my mom and I'm crying on the phone and he's crying in the background. And she came over and she got the ibuprofen. We gave him some and he was fine that night. But at that point, I realized that I have to take charge attitude. I'm the captain of this ship. These are my children. I'm divorced and I'm going to raise my children. Nobody's going to take them away. I'm not going to turn them over to anybody else to raise. I brought them into this world and as long as I'm here, I'm raising them. And so that's the attitude I took. I sat up that night and I spoke to Nadia, my oldest daughter, and you know, it was very close. It was close to Christmas time when I got back to St. Croix. It was in December. I said, we are going to cook Christmas dinner. Because in my family, I'm the person that usually does all the cooking. For any special occasion, everyone comes over to my house. So I said, you know, we're going to do it. And Nadia and I stayed up that night. We seasoned the turkey. And we cooked.
What you do?
Are we recording our video, sister?
Yeah.
Okay, bye. And we cooked. And I called my mom and my sister the next day and I said, hold on one more second. Hello? I will, but I'm doing something very important. I'll call you right back. Yes, sorry about that. So, they came over and they saw the turkey and the seasoned rice. I must applaud Nadia. She was a champion in that kitchen. That child knew how to cook just from watching me. And mind you, when I could see, I wouldn't let them in the kitchen because I thought they would get burned or they would cut themselves. Man, Nadia and Atira took charge of that kitchen. They helped me baste the turkey. They helped me find the pots in the kitchen. We cooked, and it was delicious. And my family came over and they cried because nobody expected that I would cook. You know, over the years, we developed a bond, not just as mother and child, but as a team. We learned to work together. You know, today, all 3 of my daughters are great cooks. I taught them everything I knew. And probably if I could still see, I would still be afraid of them cooking and touching knives and stuff. But because I know that I can't see, even though I still cook and stuff, I want them to be able to know how to cook and clean. And so they're excellent cooks. I'm working on my son Ishmael now. He is only going to cook if he has to. I still am a little wary of him cooking, but we have learned to work together as a team. And we're doing an excellent job at it. I am still blind, even though the doctors have said that the condition is temporary. October of 2015 will make it 7 years since I lost my vision. And as of today's date, nothing really has changed. I could see, shadows out of like if I'm moving my hand right now on the left side, I can see the shadow of my hand moving, only when it moves. If I stop, I see nothing. If you turn a light off or on, I could see that. That's nothing. I couldn't see those things when I first lost my vision. They said that the optic nerve heals 1 millimeter? I think 1 millimeter per month. Well, I must really have a 1 centimeter per month. I think it's 1 centimeter per month. It's like a cc of milk. It's very small. I must have a really large optic nerve because it's been 7 years, and the only vision I have now is, like I told you, see a light that turns off or on, or a shadow if it moves, and that's it. If the shadow stops moving, I don't see the shadow, and I cannot distinguish if the shadow is a stick that's being swung in front of me or if it's a human being moving left or right. But I have learned to deal with it. I can't say to you that it bothers me, that it does not bother me that I am blind. It does bother me because I've always been a very independent person. I've always been a take charge person. I've never been home dependent on anyone. I love to work. And one of the biggest obstacles I've had so far since I've lost my vision is finding employment. And sorry to cry. But when you live on the island of St. Croix, where I'm from, and you have a disability such as blindness, it is near to impossible to find employment. I have one friend that's a teacher in St. Croix. She's completely blind. Her name is Carmen. And she had a very difficult time. He actually had, folks had to fight for her to get, and actually speak to the governor to get her, employed. Even though she's a very qualified teacher, she's very well educated, they did not want to hire her because of her disability. I am a person, I'm very qualified also, I'm not a teacher. I'm currently studying criminal justice. I'm doing my bachelor's degree online with Walden University. I'm in my second year. I'm doing very well. I was studying educational technology before, but because of a incident that occurred with my daughter, my oldest daughter, recently, I said, I need to study criminal justice. I need to know the law, because I surely can't afford an attorney. I said, hey, I might as well become one. And that day when I had to attend my daughter's bond hearing, the first person I met was a blind attorney. And I thought, this has to be a sign from God. Because he was in the lobby area of the jail, the hearing was being held at the jail in a separate room, separate area. And he was there, waiting to represent a client. And it just so happened we were the only two people in the lobby area. And my friend at the time introduced me to him. And we spoke, and I was telling him I always wanted to be an attorney, but I didn't think I could do it with my disability. And he said to me, well, he's been blind since 1987. He was in a car accident and he lost his eyes. And I got the opportunity to hear him at the bond hearing. He's very sharp. He did not miss a beat. And I was so impressed. I said that day that I was going to go home, contact Walden University, and change my degree program. And I did. I changed it from an educational technology to criminal justice. And that is what I'm studying now. I'm currently doing a class on criminology. I just completed one on criminal justice, and I love it. I think I'll be a wonderful attorney one day. Of course, I have to go to law school. I don't know how I'm going to afford it when I'm finished, because right now, I have a grant and student loans to pay. But trust me, I will be an attorney one day. Even if it takes me 10 years, I'll get there. But anyway, that's what I'm doing right now. I moved from St. Croix to Georgia because it was just too hard to find a job there. I tried everything. I became a certified ADA trainer with Cornell University back in 2010, in hopes that would make it easier for me to acquire employment there. It did not. Once you go into an interview and folks realize that you are blind, they shut the door. There's no more door. The door has been shut. It has been nailed in, and they put bars over it, and then they plaster it concrete. you are not going to get that job. Now, on the sister island, St. Thomas, they do have persons who are blind that are employed that I know of. It's the Independent Living Center on St. Thomas. I think it's Miss Brownlow that is in charge of the center, and every single employee in that office has a disability. It ranges, I know she has 2 employees, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who are blind. And she has a person, Stephanie Brown, that is, she's deaf, hearing impaired, and some other staff members that have various disabilities. But, I tried everything. I was even a chairperson for VIDDC, that's Virgin Islands Developmental Disability Council. I was the chairperson for that council. Miss Yvonne Peterson is the director. She's a sweetheart. She tried her best to find employment for me. I was hired as a contract employee to host 2 conferences that they had, which was the 2014 conference and the 2015 conference. It's called Empowered Parents Equals Successful Children. I was hired as a contract employee for both of those conferences. But besides that, I have not been able to find a job in the Virgin Islands. So I moved to Georgia, where there are many opportunities for persons like myself who are blind to find employment. I have not applied for a job yet because I'm trying to get myself more familiar with the NVDA software for the blind. It is like the JAWS software, it's just a different name, but it does all the same things. So that's what I use to do my schoolwork online. But I don't feel that I'm as sharp as I should be, and I don't want to be employed at a job that requires me to do desk work and then I can't do it efficiently because I'm not skilled enough. So I'm currently trying to get the proper training here in Georgia so that I could become employable. Although I do think I'm employable now, I'm just not 100%. And I'm one of those people that I'm a perfectionist at everything. So if you hire me, I want to be able to do what I'm employed for and beyond. So the only problem with that is when I spoke to the relocation specialist about moving to Georgia and I explained to them my situation, they recommended that I move outside of the city limits just for safety reasons. But no one told me that there was no paratransit here where I live. I'm in Conyers, Georgia. And there is no paratransit here. If I have a doctor's appointment, Logistic here will take me around. But that's it. If I get a job, I can call the paratransit to pick me up. And the nearest pickup point is, I think it's Stonecrest Mall, about 13 minutes by car away from here. And that poses a big problem for me because there's no way to get there. It's just me and my kids, and no one here drives. I'm currently working on that. Like I said, I don't let anything stand in my way. It takes a lot longer. It's not easy being blind, I'll tell you that. Everything is more expensive. Everything takes longer. If you're a person that is independent and have never liked to depend on people like myself, it'll be very difficult for you. I mean, you're going to do it because I'm doing it. But having to wait on people to do stuff for you is what makes it more difficult. When people see me and they find out that I'm blind, they often ask, well, how do you do it? And how are you raising your children by yourself? Doesn't it bother you? Being blind doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that I can't do what I want to do at the time that I want to do it because I'm blind. So if I want to go to the grocery store right now, I can't just walk out the door and walk to Kroger's. Someone has to go with me. That's what bothers me. I want to go to work. I can't just call a taxi cab and go to the job because I can't afford it. I'm on a very fixed income. I only receive my disability check every month, which is under $800. and I still have to pay rent and all the utilities, and I have my oldest daughter and my second daughter. They're working part-time jobs to help out, and we work great together as a team. But of course, if I do get gainful employment, things will be much better. So I just wanted to make this video for people, who may be experiencing the symptoms that I had prior to me losing my vision, and who may have lost their vision to whatever other reason. People lose their vision by accidents, like the attorney that I met. Some people lose it due to diabetes, macular degeneration. There's a lot of different reasons. But I don't want you to give up on life. There's no one person in this world who is perfect. And although we would all like to believe that we are normal, there is no such thing as a normal person, because there are no people that are exactly alike in this world. So who is to say what the true definition of normal is? If you look in the mirror and you have your vision, one eye is going to be slightly bigger than the other. One foot is going to be slightly bigger than the other. We are not normal. What is the definition of normal? We all have some sort of disability. Whether is a disability that is hidden, that people can't see, or is one that is physical, that everyone can see, or is something that's not labeled a disability. We are all disabled. And what makes us greater, I don't mean to sound boastful, but I think as blind individuals or visually impaired persons, we have an advantage to those who are not. Because guess what? We can't see what's in front of us, but we step out every day on faith. We take one step in front of the other, not knowing if there's a huge pothole in front of us, not knowing if there's a bus coming our way to knock us down, maybe crush us to pieces. But we still step out every day. We go to work. I may not be employed right now, but I'm going to get there someday. We go out every day with our heads held high. We go to work, we cook, we clean, we take care of children, we function just like any other person out there. But guess what? We can't see, and we're still doing it. And those people who are out there that have their vision and can see, they're not doing half of what we do as blind individuals. So if you ever get depressed and think, well, oh, no one is going to love me, or no one is going to want me, or I can't do this, or I can't do that because I'm blind, lift your head up. You're a great person. You are stronger than most because you are doing it. You're living, you're surviving, and you cannot see. Don't ever forget that. I will never let anyone put me down because of my disability. And I encourage anyone that has a disability, whether you are blind, or you're in a wheelchair, or you have a mental disability like they label some, you're a wonderful person, you are a great person, and you are stronger than most. Never forget that. Anyone tries to talk down at you, say, hey, I'm doing it and I'm still surviving. I didn't pop a bottle of sleeping pills to end my life. Can you do the same? Can you function like me if you lost your vision tomorrow? That's the true test. So be strong as I am. Peace out. Now I gotta call my daughter to end this tape. Nadia. Nadia. Come quick, come end the tape. Hurry, hurry, hurry. You end it?